And so we get to the point where I talk about the rest of the software manufacturers. If you've been following this series, you'll know that up to now I've bought myself a Mac, I've configured it, installed Cubase and downloaded some of my software, and I've talked about the issues that I encountered along the way. In this video, I'm going to wrap this up, talk about the rest of the software manufacturers. Although I'm not going to talk about these software manufacturers because their stuff worked beautifully. All of these companies rely on an iLok for their license management, and it worked exactly as you would expect. I downloaded the software from the manufacturer's website, installed it, and it worked seamlessly, effortlessly, beautifully. But then I had to download some other iLok software which didn't work as beautifully and seamlessly. Let's start with Isotope. I downloaded the stuff and I should have known better, because when I bought Nectar 3, I had the devil's own job getting my iLok license onto my iLok. No, nothing against Pace, who run iLok. Isotope's system just simply didn't put the license in the right place, and I had to go back to Isotope's help people to get it installed. This time round, I installed the software. Everything within Isotope's own little portal bespoke downloader thingamajiggy seemed to say, fine, it's all working, you've got your licenses. I loaded up Cubase. Oh, no, can't find the license. Are you sure you got a license? You should have a license for this, you know. I had to then go through and point each one at the iLok license that there was. It was a right royal pain in the backside. I think in the end I ended up authorizing some of the software to my computer, not to the iLok, purely because it was easier to do it that way. I don't know what they do when smaller manufacturers can get it right, that a big company like Isotope, who are now part of the Native Instruments conglomerate, don't seem to have their act together. And talking of people who haven't got their act together, let's turn to Slate Digital. Okay, so here we are. This is the Slate Digital Connect. Apparently I've got some updates to work up, and it's telling me I've got to activate my licenses. Well, I don't, because they're activated. So quite why it's telling me to activate my licenses, I don't know. I've also got to update these, which I won't do through Slate Digital Connect, because if you are like me and you're not an All Access Pass user, even if you are and you don't have the funky masquerading microphones, when you install this, it will install everything, all of the VMR modules. You then have to go, there's a link you can find on the Slate Digital website, you then have to go and delete those modules manually. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Slate Digital website when I've finished recording this video, and I will download the installer, because when you run the installer, not through this, but manually, you can actually pick which modules you want installed, and you can therefore not install the ones you don't have. Because, for example, if you were to go to all plugins here, the VMR, these Earth Air, Custom Opto, FG2A, these are ones I don't have because I kicked the Slate Access into Touch. And you may ask why I kicked the Slate Access into Touch, and I'm glad you did. I don't know what Slate have done with their iLok implementation, but it is a right royal pain in the backside. When I load the Slate VMR in Cubase, I see the little beach ball of death. And one of the reasons I kicked all access into touch is that on my old laptop, you could go away and make a cup of coffee while it thought about whether or not it was going to open up. And that is down to the way they have their iLok implementation. And I know this is true because I have DaVinci Resolve installed on both of my computers. And when I went back into DaVinci Resolve, having moved my iLok onto the Mac, DaVinci Resolve wouldn't work properly because it just kept saying you don't have a license for the Slate Digital plugins, because you can run VST2 plugins within DaVinci Resolve, which for a musician is really handy. So I had to disable them. It was just asking all the time, why don't you have a license for these plugins that you have installed? Now, if it's asking all the time when you're running a video editing program, what's it doing in the background of a DAW? Slate, get your act together. Everybody else's stuff runs smoothly, invisibly, and quickly with an iLok. Why doesn't yours? So, rant over for now. So that deals with the iLok. Everything ran tickety-boo apart from Isotope and Slate Digital. I was then left with my non-Isotope applications. And again, I'm not going to talk to you about the programs from these companies because they ran tickety-boo as well. It was simply a question of finding the email with my login details or my license number from yesteryear. Unfortunately, I'm a bit OCD about that sort of thing, and I had them all very neatly stored away in a folder. Download the software, put in your license number, carry on, make music. There were some exceptions to the rule. I was very surprised when I came to Spitfire Audio because you have to make a decision when you download the programs from Spitfire Audio. Not the libraries. The libraries are fine. I've downloaded them. They were on the external drives. All I had to do was point the Spitfire Audio application to where I'd got the libraries, and it worked fine. With Spitfire Audio, you have to make a decision as to which version of their plugins you're going to download, because they have two versions for the Mac. They have the native version, and they have the Rosetta version. And if you're running your DAW in Rosetta mode, you need the Rosetta plugins installed. If you're running in native mode, you need the native plugins installed. And you can't switch between the two. It's kind of a make your mind up. Which one are you going to work in? This isn't an issue for me, but it will be something I will have to do at a point in the future when I go all native. I mentioned Toontrack. So here we are in the Toontrack Product Manager. I haven't done my weekly trawl through the updates this week, so I've got a couple of updates to apply. But what I want to show you is this. I've heavily invested in Toontrack products. I like them. I think they're cool. 102 products. When you download those products, as I had to do from scratch, you have to download them and type in your password. But with, for example, EasyBass, you have to download the application, you have to download the library, and you have to download the MIDI. That's 3 times you type in your password. Then you have to download the updates, and the updates to the library, and the updates to the MIDI. That's 6 times you type in your password for one application. And for everything else, the same rule applies. You download the base installer, and then you download the latest update. When you get to the MIDI files for things like Easy Keys, you spend longer typing your password in than it actually takes the Mac to install the software. It's a race. How fast can you type your password? So I think I must have been pushing 300 entries of my password before I got the job done. I've said before, I quite like the Toontrack Product Manager because it allows you to manage what you download. It doesn't just go off and do it. You can sort of set it to go, and you've got control of the process, and then you can clean up afterwards. You can make sure that it deletes all the downloaded files that it no longer needs. But surely to God there was an easier way of doing it than having to type in my password again and again and again and again and again. And finally we come to Waves. So this is Wave Central, which is the product we've all come to know and love. When I got the Mac, started downloading stuff, it was just after the debacle with the launch of Waves Creative Access. So I'm going to put a little bit of a rider on this, that the problems I had may well have been fixed. Waves was fairly unique, and it was the only one of the software companies that I've mentioned in all of these videos where I had to unauthorize my plugins on my old computer before I could download them to my new computer. Everybody else allows you to have 2 installations, but not Waves. You have them on one computer. And if you want extra, you've got to pay for that second license. The Waves update plan that we all know and love again. As I say, it was just after the debacle with the Waves Creative Access. So I could download all my V14 Waves plugins, but I had a couple that were V13 where the update plan had lapsed. And to get them installed, what I had to do was to download, or what I would have had to do, I should say, was download an offline installer, which contains the entirety of the Waves bundle. But then once you've downloaded this megabytes of stuff, all you need to do is install the 2 that you need. They've actually fixed that problem now. If you have legacy plugins, you can now download and install them through Creative Access. Or so they say. If you know better, let me know in the comments below. The one that caused me real grief was the Electric Grand 80 piano. I've always loved the Yamaha CP70, CP80, and this is what this is meant to be. I could get the plugin to install, but getting the sample library to install was a major pain. I had to eventually download the sample libraries individually from the Waves website and then marry them up in this by saying, well, basically that's where the library is stored, go look for it, and it did. So it's not been as easy as it should have been with Waves. And that brings me to the point where I had installed everything I needed to install. Some things I didn't install. The UJAM stuff that I had, I haven't installed because I'm running Cubase. And my aim is to go native in Cubase. And at the moment, all but the latest Virtual Guitarist plugin that they've released this week are VST2, not VST3. And if you want to run Cubase in native rather than in Rosetta, you need VST3 everything, and you need to have them silicon native. Well, the UJAM stuff has gone native, but it's not gone VST3. Why? I don't know. But the stuff that I've got is all resolutely VST2, and it's going to stay in the thank you but no thank you department until UJAM get their act together. To finish off, the one thing I would say that I was really quite concerned about when I started down this road was that I would try and download something from a manufacturer and they would say, oh, you bought the Windows version, son. You've got to start again to get the Mac version, and no one did. All of the software manufacturers will cheerfully let you switch from PC to Mac without a quibble. They'll even let you run both at once, providing you've got the iLok plugged into the right thing. And that's where I'm going to stop it. It's been an experience. I'm sure I'll mention some more bits and pieces in future videos. But for right now, I've got my Mac set up, and I'm happy that I've got my Mac set up. It's about time I went and made some music. So until next time, you take care of yourselves.